Have you ever met a man who seemed calm, yet his eyes carried a storm? Before we begin, subscribe to this channel where we explore the hidden truths about men and masculinity, the stories behind the silence, the weight behind the smile. Because sometimes what's unspoken speaks the loudest. Now let's begin. They say war is loud, rifles crackling, tanks roaring, soldiers screaming into the void of chaos. But there is a war that doesn't make a sound. No bullets, no sirens, just silence. And men fight it every single day. Not in deserts or jungles, but in office chairs and traffic jams, locker rooms and lonely bedrooms. This war isn't televised. There are no medals, no ceremonies. Only pressure, constant, unrelenting pressure, disguised as normal life. And yet it breaks bones without ever lifting a finger. Every morning, millions of men wake up with armor no one can see. They straighten their backs, tighten their jaws, and step into a world that has quietly taught them one thing: suffer silently, or not at all. You see, masculinity has always carried a code, one passed down not with words, but with nods, looks, expectations. Don't cry. Don't show weakness. Be the rock, the protector, the provider, the last to break, even if it breaks you. And so, a man learns early that strength is not just about how much he can lift, but how much he can carry at Shumaz alone. But what happens when the load becomes too heavy? Let's go back, not just decades, but centuries. Ancient Sparta. Boys taken from their mothers at age 7, flung into brutal training known as the agoj, beaten, starved, and taught to endure without complaint. Crying was weakness. Sympathy, punishable. You were to be steel, shaped in fire, tested in blood. That legacy never really vanished. It just put on a suit. Modern society claims we're evolved, that men can be emotional, that mental health is important. And yet suicide remains one of the leading causes of death for men worldwide. In some countries, 3 out of 4 suicides are men. Think about that. In a world of infinite voices and platforms, the deadliest disease among men is silence. But silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of something deeper: shame. Shame whispers that you're not enough, that you're failing as a father, a partner, a man, that you're not working hard enough, earning enough, being strong enough. It convinces you that no one wants to hear your pain, that vulnerability will only turn people away. And so men build walls, impressive ones. They laugh loud, work hard, crack jokes, bench press the pain until one day it slips through the cracks. Ask yourself, how many men do you know who drink alone, who disappear into work, who joke about dying but look too serious when they say it? There's a haunting truth here. Many men are not living. They're performing. Take James, 35, successful, father of 2. On paper, he had it all. A good job, a house, a loving wife. But every night, he'd sit in his car for 20 minutes before entering the house. Why? Because inside, he felt like a failure. He'd been laid off 2 months ago, and he hadn't told anyone. Every morning, he dressed in a suit and drove to nowhere just to keep the mask on. When he finally confessed, he wept, not from the job loss, but because he thought he was less of a man. Or consider Leo, 22, star athlete in college, bright future. But the pressure to always be the man was suffocating. Injured in a game, he spiraled. He didn't know how to ask for help. He never had to before. One night, he posted a cryptic status: "I'm tired." By the time someone reached him, it was too late. These are not rare stories. These are common, silent casualties. Even in brotherhood, where strength is forged, silence often persists. In male friendships, checking in sometimes sounds like "wanna grab a beer?" or "you good?" And while those words carry love, they often skim the surface. Underneath there may be pain, depression, father wounds, unspoken trauma. But there's a code. Don't go too deep, because somewhere along the way, many men learned that emotional pain isn't masculine. It's inconvenient. But what if the opposite were true? What if real strength isn't in hiding the scars, but in owning them? Take a moment. Think about the word warrior. We imagine swords, shields, battlefield glory. But the fiercest battles aren't fought with weapons. They're fought in therapy rooms, in bedrooms with tear-stained pillows, in moments where a man chooses to break the cycle, to say, "I need help," instead of, "I'm fine." One of the most dangerous phrases in the male vocabulary is, "I'm fine." It's code for, "I'm drowning, but I don't want to burden you. I'm falling apart, but I need you to still respect me." So let's decode it. Because behind "I'm fine" is where the silent war lives. And in this war, the enemies are many. Expectations, past trauma, fatherlessness, pressure to provide, fear of judgment, and above all, the lie that you're alone. But you're not. Even the strongest men have breaking points. Ernest Hemingway, brilliant, decorated masculine, died by suicide. Robin Williams, comedic genius, beloved worldwide, fought hidden depression. Anthony Bourdain, the rugged adventurer, couldn't outrun the war in his head. This isn't weakness. This is proof that even lions bleed. And what about the battlefield of fatherhood? Millions of men grew up without fathers, or with fathers who were physically present but emotionally absent. So when they become dads themselves, they fight ghosts, trying to be better yet haunted by what they never received. They're winging it, building bridges with hands that never held blueprints. And in relationships, the war continues. A man may love deeply, yet struggle to express it. Why? Because many were never taught how. Affection was awkward. Vulnerability was shamed. So he bottles it. Loves in actions, not words. And when that isn't seen, he retreats. Now imagine waking up every day, fighting invisible battles and being told you're privileged, lazy, emotionally unavailable, that you need to man up, yet be more sensitive. Be a leader, but don't be controlling. Be ambitious, but don't make too much money. Be confident, but don't take up space. Be vulnerable, but not too emotional. It's not a war, it's a minefield. And men are tiptoeing through it every day. So where does this lead us? To a critical moment. One where we must ask, what if the war isn't meant to be won alone? A man is told from a young age to be the hero. But what happens when the hero needs saving? The truth is, masculinity is not the enemy. It's the misunderstanding of it. Strength isn't about pretending you don't hurt. It's about having the courage to face what hurts. It's not about stoicism at all costs. It's about mastering your emotions, not ignoring them. Look at history's greatest leaders: Nelson Mandela, Abraham Lincoln, Marcus Aurelius. All powerful, all stoic, but not emotionless. They grieved, they doubted, they wept. Aurelius kept a journal to tame the chaos of his own thoughts. Lincoln battled depression. Mandela forgave those who stole decades from him. Their power didn't come from pretending to be invincible. It came from embracing the struggle, not hiding from it. Yet today, millions of men still armor up every morning. Not with courage, but with fear. Not because they want to be fake, but because they're afraid their real self won't be accepted. And here's the hardest part of the silent war. It doesn't just steal men's peace. It often makes them question their worth. When you feel like no one sees the pain behind your productivity. When every compliment is tied to what you do, not who you are. When failure feels fatal to your identity. That's not just pressure. That's psychological warfare. But here's what they don't teach you growing up. You're allowed to be human. Not perfect, not always in control, not always winning. You're allowed to rest without guilt, to cry without shame, to ask for help without feeling like you're less. You're allowed to stumble, to doubt, to not have all the answers. Being a man isn't about being unbreakable, it's about how you rebuild. There's a quiet revolution happening. Men who are deciding they're done performing. Men who are finding brotherhood not in competition, but in connection. Men who are showing up for their sons, their daughters, their partners, not as flawless providers, but as present, authentic souls. There's power in saying, I'm struggling. There's strength in asking, can we talk? There's healing in hearing, me too. This isn't just about mental health. It's about changing the entire framework of what manhood means. And maybe it starts with one question we've forgotten how to ask each other. How are you really doing? Imagine a world where that question wasn't awkward, where men could look at each other, not as threats, not as rivals, but as fellow warriors who have each taken hits, some visible, some hidden. Imagine a world where boys grow up knowing that masculinity isn't a prison, it's a spectrum, that you can be fierce and gentle, tough and tender, a protector and someone in need of protection. We raise our boys to slay dragons, but forget to teach them how to confront their own. And those dragons? They look like debt, loneliness, fear of failure, abandonment, burnout, rejection, rage. We've built generations of men who don't know how to name their pain, only suppress it, until it bursts out as violence, addiction, emotional withdrawal, or worse, complete detachment from life. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Because every day, more men are quietly choosing a different path. They're breaking ancestral patterns, going to therapy, opening up in friend groups, becoming emotionally fluent, saying I love you to their fathers for the first time, hugging their sons, admitting they were wrong, asking their partners what they need, not assuming, redefining strength. That's not weakness, that's legacy. Masculinity isn't toxic, but unhealed masculinity can be dangerous, just like any unchecked force. And what heals it isn't shame, it's permission. Permission to be honest, permission to be confused, permission to rebuild yourself after decades of hiding. So if you're watching this, and something in you feels seen, let me say this clearly. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not alone. What you feel is real. What you carry is heavy. But your struggle doesn't define your worth. It reveals it. You have survived battles no one knows about. You've smiled while your world collapsed. You've provided when your own cup was empty. You've stayed quiet to keep peace. You've walked through fire just to make sure others were warm. That's not weakness, that's heroism in disguise. And maybe the world never gave you a medal. Maybe your father never said, I'm proud of you. Maybe no one ever thanked you for the way you've shown up, held it together, kept fighting. But hear this now, you matter. You matter beyond what you earn, beyond what you produce, beyond how strong you look. You matter because you are. And if this silent war feels like too much, if the weight is unbearable, know this. Asking for help is not surrender. It's strategy. It's a man saying, I want to live, I want to grow, I want more than just survival, I want peace. That is the bravest act of all. So let's change the battlefield. Let's talk. Let's listen. Let's create spaces where men don't have to wear masks to be respected, where tears aren't ridiculed but honored, where fathers raise sons who believe they can feel and still be fierce, where manhood is no longer about silence but about truth. The silent war ends when we stop pretending it doesn't exist. If this message moved you, share it with someone who might need it. Drop a comment, tell your story. Let's build something bigger than views or likes. Let's build brotherhood. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join this growing community of men, reclaiming their strength, with honesty, heart, and purpose. This is more than content. It's a movement, because the war is real, but so is the healing.